Welcome to another episode of the GunBlog VarietyCast with your hosts, Sean Sorrentino and Aaron Paulette.
Welcome to episode 125 of the GunBlog VarietyCast, a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. How are you doing, Aaron?
I'm going to take a page from Adam's playbook and say, I'm so exhausted. So last night, I had far too much nervous energy and I couldn't sleep, so I made use of this very rare manic state, and I decided to clean and organize, and I didn't get to bed until 5 o'clock this morning. On the upside, my closet looks amazing.
Well, if you're not doing anything, I'm pretty sure this house could use some of that manic energy. What do you think? I'm sure that my wife would be happy something got cleaned around here that she didn't do.
Well, tell you what, I'll clean your closets at the NRA house.
Oh, well, that doesn't help. Speaking of the NRA house, we talked about how we were going to have this house at the NRA convention, and we're going to have people from the podcast there and some of our friends, and we're going to do something. Well, I put in the reservation, and we were accepted. We have the house.
Didn't Weird refer to it as MTV's Real World NRAM?
Yeah, he suggested that we get Coleon Noir to bring his camera crew and then just stay there for like 6 months. Yeah, I think my boss would have a problem with that.
Yeah, but think about how happy that would make Tiffany.
That's exactly true.
Okay, so before she bites my head off, I'm just going to say for the record that she isn't a total screaming fangirl. She just admires him from afar. So it's not like she'd do anything. She just really wants to meet him and shake his hand.
And you know what? If Coleon Noir listens to any of Tiffany's segments, he's going to be the fangirl.
So like I said in one of our Facebook threads, what we need to do, since Tiffany's going to be there and Sarah Cade is going to be there, and we're going to try and get Adam A. Dillon there, and Oleg Volk, the photographer, is going to be there, we need to get those 3 women and Coleon Noir, and then we can do a person of color remake of Charlie's Angels, only with proper gun handling. So, Sean, I understand that you're about to face the snowpocalypse up in North Carolina.
Yep. After all the times I've given Sarah Cade a bad time about living on Hoth because she lives in Minnesota, we're about to get clobbered with snow. Well, clobbered by southern standards, at least. We're currently facing somewhere between 2 inches and, oh my God, it's going to be 8 inches of snow. We're all going to die. So, not sure what to do about this. It's going to happen over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, maybe a little bit into Monday. So when this podcast drops, feel free to check out WRAL at WRAL.com and see how bad it's gotten here in Raleigh. Remember the picture of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man marching through the snow and all the cars on fire, or one car on fire? I don't know what it was. You saw that one. It went all over Facebook.
Right.
That was Raleigh, like the last time it snowed, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't know. So that wasn't anywhere near 8 inches. Oh my God, we're all going to die. It was like a couple of inches. If this place gets hit with 8, it's going to be a mess.
Snow, my God, it's Snowmageddon.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what have you done to prepare?
Well, we've got eggs, bread, and milk.
I got to get the bread and milk. I got to get the bread and milk. Oh my God, I got to get the bread and milk.
And in case we lose power, we're going to fill up the water bottles on Friday.
Yeah, didn't you say that you're on a communal well?
Yeah, and when the power goes out, we got about 12 hours before the hydro-pneumatic tank goes dry. I've already sent something to the community Facebook page that I'm going to fill up all my water bottles and try to save water for others. And, kind of encourage everybody else to do the same thing. Because if the power goes out and everybody goes, oh my goodness, there's no power, which means the well is going to go dry, and they all fill up a couple 100 gallons in their bathtub, they just suck the tank dry. Good job, guys. So if you fill it beforehand, then we'll have all that water that they can flush their toilets with. Because remember in the hurricane how I complained about all that water that was getting poured down the toilet. It just bugged me. So we're not going to go through that again.
You'd be surprised at how much of prepping can get reduced to don't be a douche to other people.
Yeah, and apparently my job is to encourage others not to be a douche to me.
Yeah,
don't use up all my water. Because, oh God, it just bugged me every time I poured 2.5 gallons down the toilet. Ugh.
All right, so we've covered water, we've covered the staples. What about power? What's the chance that your power's going to go out just because it's snowing?
Well, we tend actually not to get snow here. We get ice. That's the big worry around here is ice storms. Now, this is supposed to be a snowstorm, not an ice storm, but you never really know. The ice lands on the trees, and of course, you get enough ice in a tree, you're going to snap the tree. It doesn't matter what kind of tree it is, it's going to get crushed. And if that tree happens to be over a power line when it goes down, the power line goes down with it. The tree butchers have already cleared the power line corridor, so hopefully we won't have a problem, but after more than 2 years of listening to you say, be prepared like some sort of a rainbow Boy Scout, it's kind of rubbed off.
Well, I'm glad to see that I've had some civilizing effect on you, Sean. Now, if we could only work on your terrible sense of humor.
Hey!
And with that, let's get on with the show. Thanks to Lucky Gunner and Remington for their support of the GunBlog VarietyCast. From Golden Saber to range rounds, get a full lineup of quality Remington ammo that ships fast at luckygunner.com. Beth is constantly asked to recommend concealed carry handguns. While she can't make that decision for anyone, she does have a few thoughts on the matter. She and her husband discuss their likes, dislikes, and options regarding carry pistols.
In my line of work, a lot of people ask me all the time what kind of gun I would suggest for concealed carry usage. Of course, as we all know, that's a very loaded question, pun intended. It's difficult to be able to answer that question because there are so many different variables at play. You have to consider your lifestyle. You have to consider how and where you want to carry this gun. And of course, you need to consider what kind of firearm actually fits you, and there's a lot of trial and error to that. That doesn't mean that I'm not happy or free to share what I personally like to use for concealed carry. So I thought it might be a little interesting to chat about some of my favorite concealed carry guns, why I like them. But I also wanted to involve my husband Sean in this discussion because men and women see things very differently. We have different perspectives and different needs when it comes to concealed carry. And of course, he might have some likes or dislikes on certain guns that I don't share. And it's important to take all these into consideration when you are trying to figure out what gun is right for you, especially if this is the gun that you want to carry. So first and foremost, my very first concealed carry gun that I chose for myself was the Springfield Armory XDS. I kind of gravitated toward this model because Sean and I already had an XD and we'd practiced with that a lot. And I thought, hey, it makes sense to go from a gun that I basically understand as far as how it works and how to actually field strip it and clean it, and just go down one step so it would be something that would be a little bit easier for me to conceal and carry on body. I also liked the XDS platform because I have 3 children, and I wanted to have maybe that extra built-in safety feature that just made me feel a little bit more confident as a mom having that gun with me at all times. And of course, my children are with me at almost all times as well, so if both of them are in the equation, it was important to have that safety feature. And what I'm speaking of is that the XDS has a grip safety. And if you do not engage the grip safety by using a proper grip, the gun will not fire. And I've got very painful living proof of this because I used my XDS in a competition, and unfortunately, when I drew my firearm, I did not have that good grip. I did not engage the grip safety. And when I went to press that trigger, nothing happened. So that gives you a little bit of background, a little information on my very first gun that I chose for myself. Some people aren't really thrilled with the XDS. It does have a very heavy trigger pull. It is a little bit difficult to rack the slide, but I do like that it offers the extended grip, so I get the 2 extra rounds if I want to carry 9 instead of 7. And ultimately, I just really like this gun. I like the really heavy textured grip as well. It's comfortable for me. And again, because I was familiar with its big brother, basically, I felt that this was a good fit for me. Now, Sean, do you like the XDS?
Not particularly, no. I don't appreciate the heavy trigger pull. Of course, I could get used to it. I don't prefer it. I prefer to carry a Smith & Wesson Shield in 9mm, and I also carry regularly a Sig Sauer P938. Those guns for me, I like the triggers better. I like the way they feel better. So I'm not saying the XDS is a bad gun. It is a phenomenal firearm. I just prefer the ones I carry. I have also been known to carry a Glock 43 as well, which is also an awesome gun. But I like the safeties that the 938 and the Shield have You can manipulate the slide, unload it, and load it with the safety engaged, which I think is really cool versus something like a full-size 1911, which I will carry those occasionally, but with the thumb safety on, you can't rack the slide or manipulate it in any way to unload it and clear it. So I like how the Shield and the 938, you can unload it if you wanted to with the safety on. But of course, the biggest safety is your brain and your trigger finger. Keep your finger off the trigger, the gun doesn't go off. So those are my carry guns. That's how I prefer to carry.
One thing Sean mentioned that we are actually on the same page with is the Glock 43. Funny thing is, I tried the Glock 42 when it came out because, oh my gosh, what hype there was when Glock came out with a mini Glock. How exciting. And of course, I had no problem with a 380 and tried the 42 and did not like it. The 43 is not that different. It's the 9mm version and it's almost identical in size and shape. But for some reason, I really, really liked that particular gun. So Sean likes to carry that gun. Sometimes we might have to discuss who is taking which one because we can't hold the same firearm, obviously. Or maybe we need another Glock 43. Maybe that's what I'm going for here. There's never any issues with adding another gun to your collection. The more you get to know guns, the more you're around them, the more you use them, the more you really start to define what it is that you like best about those firearms. The other gun, and kind of a third gun that I tend to also like for concealed carry, just because it has such a very slim profile, is the Kimber Micro. Some people have been antsy about the Kimber because it's a little particular about ammunition, but I have had zero issues with my gun. The first Kimber Micro was a 380, and love that gun. Again, it's very small, very slim, easy to conceal under just about any clothing. Now, I also do have the Micro in the 9mm, which is also cool, again, because that seems to be the caliber that we like the most, that we use the most, and that we reload ourselves. So that's just great for practice and for training, not for carrying. So what are the things ultimately then people need to be considering when they decide to conceal carry? One of the things I mentioned is my family. I chose a gun that I wanted to carry with the thought in mind that my 3 kids would be around often. And again, that grip safety makes it just a little bit more difficult for one of them to inadvertently grab that firearm and shoot that firearm. We don't want that to happen. We don't want to give them access. But I'm saying if anyone ever did get access to the gun, my kids, somebody else's kids, or anybody, if they're not familiar with how that firearm works, they might not be able to use it properly. So safety features, that might be one of the things you look for. What else would you be looking for?
I either am wearing shorts during the summer or I wear blue jeans. Occasionally I wear khakis. So when I'm carrying the 938, I use an outside the waistband custom leather pancake holster, which holds the gun perfectly flat against my hip and is easily concealed under a t-shirt if I'm just wearing a pair of shorts in the summertime. The Smith & Wesson Shield, I have a inside the waistband holster made by Stealth Gear, which is an incredible holster. Both of them are incredible, but the Stealth Gear is just really top-notch. Those are the 2 ways that I carry, and those particular guns work really well when carried like that. I honestly like the way the 938 looks. It's an Equinox model, and it just looks cool. But aside from the looks, they have both been super reliable, and they're easy to conceal, easy for me to manipulate and handle, and that means that I'll carry it with me no matter where I go, even if it's just going to the gas station up the road. Since it's not a burden, I'm more apt to carry it with me all the time.
Okay, so safety features, reliability, looks, and concealability. You also want to consider the weight of the gun. You want to consider the size of the gun. If it's too heavy, it's not going to work well with certain holsters in certain locations. And again, I'm speaking mostly to women on that. I know lots of ladies like the bra holster. If you have a very heavy gun, it does not work, trust me. Or if you have maybe a belly band type of configuration, a really large gun that is heavy is going to be a little bit more difficult to carry that way. So you have to consider all of these things. But ultimately, the best gun for you, and this is nothing new, we've said it a million times and a million people have said it, the best gun for you is going to be the gun that you can be efficient and confident and comfortable with, the gun that you will choose to train with, and the one that you will also choose to carry and be responsible with. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Again, just kind of a recap, some of the guns that we like: the XDS, the Glock 43, the Kimber Micro, as well as
Sig Sauer P938, Smith & Wesson Shield.
So that's just a small handful out of many hundreds of thousands of different kinds that you can look at But hopefully you keep all those things in mind as you go out and look for your perfect gun. And until then, stay safe and be well armed.
You can read more from Beth at usconcealedcarry.com/blog and click on Pacifiers and Peacemakers in the left sidebar.
This podcast runs on your donations. Go to GunBlog VarietyCast.com and click on the Donate or Subscribe button in the right sidebar. You can make a one-time donation of any amount or subscribe for as little as $2 a month. That doesn't sound like much, but we pay our server costs monthly. A little help from you is a big help to us.
Felons behaving badly. Police. Neighbor used BB gun in attempted robbery. A pair of sisters got a rocky start to their Christmas Eve. Before Latricia Durham and Alexis Crank went to bed in the early hours of Saturday, they reportedly were robbed and threatened. Durham was over at her sister's house on Plymouth Street when the incident occurred between midnight and 1 a.m. There was a knock at the door. Crank flipped on the porch light and asked who was there. Recognizing the man as a neighbor, Crank opened the door only a little to be met with the barrel of a gun, Durham said. Suspect used a BB gun that appeared to be a rifle and began demanding money, police reports say. As Crank wrestled with suspect trying to close the door, Durham said she shouted to the alleged gunman. I told him that we didn't have money and there are kids in the house, she said. During the scuffle, Crank slipped out of the front door, ran to a neighbor's house to call the police. Durham ran to the back bedroom where 2 little girls were in bed. She said she stayed in the room with the 3- and 5-year-old children until she heard the screen door slam and her sister call out. Police arrived and quickly arrested suspect at his home. According to Durham, suspect shouted threats at her sister while he was being taken into custody. Durham said she's been concerned for her sister's safety since the alarming incident. Crank spent Saturday night in a hotel, but she's since returned home. Suspect, 43, of Perkins Street, was charged with first-degree burglary and attempted robbery with a dangerous weapon, both felonies. He is being held on $300,000 bond.
So what kind of moron attempts to rob his neighbors without wearing a mask on Christmas Eve?
DWI Level 1, misdemeanor, non-class code. DWI Level 2, misdemeanor, non-class code. Damage to property, misdemeanor, pre-structured. Drug paraphernalia, use, possess, misdemeanor, pre-structured. Larceny over 200, misdemeanor, pre-structured. Misdemeanor breaking and entering, misdemeanor, pre-structured. Drunken disorderly, misdemeanor, class 3. Larceny attempted, misdemeanor, class 2. Communicating threats, misdemeanor, class 1. 2 counts, damage to property, misdemeanor, class 1. 3 counts, wanton injury to personal property, $200 and less, misdemeanor, class 1. 2 counts, assault on a female, misdemeanor, class A1. Assault on an officer, state employee, misdemeanor, class A1. Assault on a public official, misdemeanor, class A1. Assault with a deadly weapon, misdemeanor, class A1. Breaking and entering vehicles, felon, class I. Forgery, felon, class I. Uttering forged papers, instruments, felon, class I. Assault with a deadly weapon inflicting serious injury, felon, class H. Burglary, second-degree attempted, felon, class H. Felony breaking and entering, felon, class H. Larceny, felon, class H. 2 counts larceny over 200, felon, class H. Common law robbery, felon, class G. Malicious conduct by a prisoner, felon, class F. And assault with a deadly weapon inflicting serious injury, felon, class E.
Oh, so that kind of moron. The kind that repeatedly makes poor life choices.
Pretty much. Baron is on assignment and will return soon. Main topic: goals. We got an email from Josh in Arizona. He heard us talking about our shooting plans for the upcoming year.
Hi, Sean and Aaron. It's listener Josh from that gun mecca known as Arizona. I'd like to share my 2017 shooting goals and challenge my fellow listeners to match or better their own goals for the coming year. First, I'm committed to attending monthly shooting competitions. I love IDPA, but haven't been making the time for it. No more. I'm going to find the time for at least 1 match per month and schedule that first. There aren't many better ways to enjoy your time for less money that also help you learn more about yourself as a shooter. Next, I'm going to take some professional instruction. I'm committing to 40 hours of instruction this year, but at least go out and take 1 class. If you've never taken any training, sign up for the basics and really dial in those fundamentals. If you've attended classes before, step up your game. Take a more advanced class or some one-on-one instruction, or maybe look for a class that manages the social side of violent encounters. Finally, join or volunteer with your state-level gun rights organization. Even here in Arizona, there's more work to be done ensuring our gun rights, whether it's working to repeal a bad law or getting more favorable legislation passed, or just countering the artificially generated movements of anti-gun groups in your state. Get involved. The state-level organizations are where the real work gets done, and they can use your help. Have a happy new year, everyone, and I hope you'll join me on the path for continual self-improvement.
Josh, thank you for pronouncing it properly. 2017.
Not 2017? So, Aaron, what are you doing in guns this year?
Well, I dry fire using a laser trainer, and I used to do this daily, but I fell off my schedule with the holidays, and so I'm going to get back on that. As for training, my application to attend MAG 40 next month has been approved, and I am 95% certain that all my finances are in order for that, and I'm going to learn so much from that class that I can't really tell you how it's going to change how I do things for the rest of the year. But I will continue going to the shooting range at least once a month. I'll also stay busy with firearms rights activism by continuing to work on Blazing Sword and attending pro-gun conferences like NRAM and GRPC for networking. My state-level gun group is Florida Carry, and I'm a sustaining member. They're already doing great things. I credit them with helping defeat the anti-gun Republican who killed the licensed open carry bill last year. I'm going to continue supporting them, and I'm also going to contact my state senators and representatives when gun laws come up in the legislature, and like Josh, I encourage our listeners to do the same in their state. And I'm going to continue to test and evaluate guns, accessories, and ammunition on my blogs. This is something that's hard to commit to since it does depend on the generosity of the manufacturers giving me these items in exchange for my pretty words, but it's something that I'm going to strive towards. So how about you, Sean?
Like I said last episode, I'm working on making at least sharpshooter in IDPA. To that end, I've scheduled my first actual training session with a pro shooter on Monday the 9th, the day after this podcast goes live. And I'm super excited. So they better have them roads plowed. That's all I got to say. Those roads better be plowed the day after this podcast goes live so that I can get to the range and get my first bit of training. I got 2 hours on the range, 1 hour with the instructor and another hour just doing the drills myself. I'm going to be bringing like 200-300 rounds of ammo. I'm going to really hit this. This is going to be fun. And if they don't have those road plowed, boy, I'm going to be pissed. Now, I've been dry firing twice a day, 5-10 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer, but mostly just really short sessions so that I can stay real focused and so that I can work on my grip strength. I've already got my 2017 calendar marked with IDPA matches on the second Saturday from February to December. I have to work on that Saturday in January, so I wish I could go then, but, work has to come first. But with it already marked on the calendar, I won't be picking any of those weeks to work. Because I get to choose. Ha ha ha. And I'm already looking for a shooting class to take. I'd really like to take the 5-day competition handgun intensive from Mike Seeklander, but unfortunately I can't imagine how I could afford the about $1,800 it would cost for me to attend, including hotel and ammo. I'm more likely to take another Tiger Swan class, and they're not called Tiger Swan anymore, they're called The Range Complex, but same guys. And maybe I'll get a chance to take another 2-day handgun class from Paul Carlson at Safety Solutions Academy. Highly recommend that if you get a chance. Speaking of Mike Seeklander, I've gotten his free competition shooting ebook, and while I was at it, I bought the videos that go along with it, and I've just started his drills. My state gun group is Grassroots North Carolina. We're having our annual meeting on February the 12th. If you're in North Carolina, make plans, attend. It's going to be in Raleigh. You got to be there. It's going to be fun. And I'm continuing my service as a volunteer, and I encourage everyone here in North Carolina not only to become a member of Grassroots North Carolina, but actually volunteer. It's a lot of fun, and you get a lot done. We're a completely volunteer organization. If you don't show up, it's not going to get done, so we could use you. And as for gatherings, like we already mentioned, NRA annual meeting in April. Anyone who's going should contact us so that we can meet up. I know I'd love to meet some of you listeners.
Oh, and so do I. I really love meeting our fans, partially because I'm just surprised that people think we're interesting and listen to us. But also because all of the fans that I've met so far have been just really wonderful and interesting people. So don't break the streak, folks.
Yeah, show on up. We want to see you. And if we get enough people saying, hey, we're coming, we'll see what we can do about setting up something, an hour somewhere. I'd really like the Self-Defense Radio Network to do something so we can get all of the podcasts together and have all of our gathering, meeting, whatever together so that you can meet somebody from every show. We also might make it to Gun Rights Policy Conference. I'm looking forward to going to GRPC without having to dress up as the love child of the Joker and Pinkie Pie, complete with Liberty spikes in my hair, painted pink.
Yeah. You say that, but, you know.
Yeah, big talk, Aaron. Big talk.
It's not talk, man. You just wait.
I have started letting my hair grow out just a bit longer so that in the unlikely event that you manage to collect $10,000 in donations to pro-gun charities like the Second Amendment Foundation and Blazing Sword, I'll have enough hair for the Liberty spikes. But mostly, I'm just looking forward to cutting it short again and laughing at you guys because you failed.
Well, you know what they say. Haters gonna hate, pony's gonna pone. So Josh challenged our listeners to do more with guns. So what are you going to do? And how will you make yourself accountable? Why don't you do like Josh did and send us a voicemail? Pull out your handy smartphone and record a short voicemail telling us about your goals for 2017.
Or, as I like to say, 2017.
2010 and 7.
Oh, that's how you say it in French.
Tiffany is on assignment and will return next week. In the meantime, you can get your Tiffany fix by listening to her guest appearance on Ballistic Radio episode 191, The Gun Owner's Guide to Avoiding Pyrrhic Victories, at ballisticradio.com. A link to the podcast is in the show notes, or download Ballistic Radio episode 191 in your favorite podcast app.
And I've listened to it already. It's great. You gotta listen to it. We know you're all Tiffany fans, so check it out. And now it's time for Blue Collar Prepping with that bratty kid sister of the gun blogosphere, Erin Paulette.
Come on, every pony. It's time for Blue Collar Prepping with Erin Paulette.
Like I mentioned at the top of the show, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, and right now I feel like a member of The Walking Dead. However, after a disaster or in an emergency situation, you may not be able to sleep well either, and odds are good that you'll have to be functional the next day. So these are the tips and tricks that I've learned regarding how to get to sleep at night in strange or uncomfortable environments, and how to compensate the next day for not being able to get sleep the night before. So, in order to get a good night's sleep, you need to have as few distractions as possible, but post-STHF, you might not have the luxury of a quiet bedroom. So, provided it's safe for you to do so, soft plugs in your ears, the squishy kind like you see at shooting ranges, will mute most noises, and a bandana or a shemagh across your eyes will cut out most bright lights. And I slept like this in college for many years. Eating right before going to bed may be terrible for your weight, but it's a great way to fall asleep. The sensation of being full is a great tranquilizer, as we can all attest from eating Thanksgiving dinner, and the heat from your body digesting the food also helps to warm your sleeping bag. If cold weather is keeping you from sleeping, a Nalgene or a metal bottle filled with hot water and brought into your sleeping bag can also serve to keep you warm at night. If you still can't sleep and have to be up and working like a normal human being the next day, there are still preps that will help with this. I, of course, am a big fan of coffee as my caffeine delivery system of choice, and I talked about this in episode 31. Other people prefer tea, which is fine. It's actually easier to carry in a bug-out bag and easier to make. But if you aren't able to make a hot, caffeinated beverage at breakfast, like you don't have the time or it isn't prudent to make a fire, then caffeine pills are your friend. I think most of us flirted with no-dos in college or in the military, but I discovered a similar product on Amazon called Jet Alert. Now, I haven't tried it yet, so this is not quite a recommendation, but a box of them costs around $6. That's half the price of No-Dose, and you get a great quantity for your money. A box of 100 milligrams of regular strength pills has a count of 120, and a double strength box has a count of 90, compared to No-Dose's count of 60 per box. So those are pretty good savings, and the brand has a good reputation on Amazon, so look into getting some for your bug-out bags, and I'm going to give them a try as well. Also, using checklists, as discussed in episode 65, are a great way to get work done even if your brain isn't fully engaged. Following a list reduces the amount of horrible thinking that I have to do when I'm tired, but it keeps me productive. If you're in a disaster situation and you expect to be fatigued the next day, before you go to bed, write down a list of all the things you need to do in the morning. Just the simple act of making a list can help people sleep better because it's one less thing to worry about. And then the following day, you can just read the instructions to yourself instead of having to go, now, what was it I'm supposed to do today?
And when you finished everything on your checklist, then what do?
Triple check checklist to make sure we didn't miss anything when we double checked the checklist.
I'll make a Bernie out of you yet, Sean. Finally, it's been my experience that fatigue from lack of sleep mirrors a hangover in a lot of ways, so I treat it similarly. I drink a lot of water when I wake up, then I force myself to do some mild exercise, walking, stretches, that sort of thing, in the sunlight. My body hates it and just wants to crawl into a dark place and sleep more, but the sunlight helps wake me up, and the exercise releases some endorphins that make my tired, wrung-out body feel somewhat better.
Not only can you subscribe or donate to the podcast, you can also make a contribution to the LGBT Training Ammo Fund. Go to GunBlogVarietyCast.com and click on the LGBT Training Ammo Fund donation button in the right sidebar. I'll use this money to pay for range fees, targets, and yes, ammo for the people I teach. And thanks for your support. The Anti-Gun Podcast has put out another episode, and you just knew that Weird was going to be on that one like white on rice. In This Week in Anti-Gun Nuttery. So hey, Weird, what do you got for me this week?
Interesting times we live in, Sean. The Loaded Conversations podcast not only put out a new podcast exactly 1 month to the day of their last extra short podcast, but this one is the longest on record, nearly twice the average length of her show. And has more content than the previous shows, which were rife with bumpers, intros, outros, and summaries. So that's an improvement in my book. Still, I do about 3-hour-long shows a week, including this one. And most of the pro-gun shows I'm aware of update about once a week with 30 minutes to an hour plus of content. So the anti-gun side, of which this is the only podcast available, doesn't quite have an A game. Oh, and while researching this segment, I found out that the host, Rebecca Flowers, is one of the presidents of the Central Ohio chapter of the Brady campaign, and has been since her first podcast dropped. So everything you hear on her podcast can be considered Brady endorsed. So let's get into it.
Last week, I sat in hearings at the Ohio State House about allowing concealed carry on college campuses and in daycares.
We've been talking a lot about campus carry for decades now, and quite a few states have adopted it, with no problems. Also, to date, all school shootings have occurred on campuses that ban carry. So why is she worried about daycares? Unless your state is different than mine or has specific laws forbidding carry, daycares are not part of the public school system. So people who can lawfully carry at the grocery store, the movies, the playground, the toy store, can carry when they enter a daycare center. Personal note, my daughter attends a local daycare, and when I drop her off and pick her up, I'm carrying a gun. I mean, why wouldn't I?
The bill we were there to oppose, of course, passed. Colleges and universities in Ohio now have the option of letting students carry guns on campus.
Go Ohio!
I appeared on a local radio show with a member of an Ohio State pro-gun student group who said they were pushing to force the university to adopt the measure, which is now only optional. Which is why I will never send my kids to college in Ohio.
Ooh, the option to allow carry. Seriously? So I guess Ohio residents now get to have fun forcing the individual campuses to allow carry. A right denied is no right at all. Also, you could win the Mom of the Year award for denying your kids cheap in-state tuition rates and force them to have crushing college debt because you're with the Brady campaign. Remember, it was Ohio State where the terrorist attacked all those students who had to wait for the cops to shoot the guy. I hope Ms. Flowers is used to the bitter sting of defeat, because that's the only thing the anti-gun side appears to have going for it.
But lest you think it's all bad news from the gun violence front, keep listening. There are people out there fighting the good fight and making a difference.
Spoiler alert, none of the people we'll be hearing from are fighting a good fight, nor are they making a difference.
Gays Against Guns is quickly becoming known for its energy and panache.
Known? By whom? I looked them up and their Twitter page has just over 1,200 followers. Since I don't do Twitter, I decided to do a comparison. Feminist Lacey Green has nearly 250,000 followers on her Twitter feed. And if you have no idea who Lacey Green is, that's my exact point on how well known and energetic this group of antis is. Also, Grassroots North Carolina has 1,888 followers. Goal, the Massachusetts gun rights group, has 4,932.
I got to talk to Dwight Panazzo, who's with GAG New Jersey.
Over the summer, we had several dedicated people working with us. And we did, in some way, help to unseat a Tea Party crazy Republican named Scott Garrett.
So they managed to defeat a conservative Republican in New Jersey? Note the "in some way," which means the well-established progressive machine that is New Jersey politics defeated yet another Republican, and Gays Against Guns decided to take a victory lap along with them.
We want to start working on a culture shift of shaming, naming, blaming anybody who's making money off of gun violence. And that would even include a place like Barnes & Noble that has 20, 30, 40 nasty gun magazines that are, put out for anybody to see.
Nasty gun magazines. Oh, the horror that people can see them. Oh, the therapy that the children of New Jersey and the world will need after seeing a magazine cover with yet another 1911 or AR-15 on them.
Getting people to change their mind, getting people to be less selfish and to understand the need to protect others from gun violence, that's a tough one. But getting companies to want to protect their bottom line, I think that's an easier one.
This is why the anti-gun side is failing. Getting people to change their opinions on guns and gun control is easy. That is, if you come with facts, logic, reason, and compassion. This is the reason why .22 ammo disappeared last year, and states are issuing record number of concealed carry permits. Shooting clubs have increased membership, as well as new clubs are being built. And even after the election of Donald Trump, who campaigned heavily on the platform of supporting the Second Amendment, the FBI is still reporting record numbers of NICS checks. On the other hand, the corporate world is different. Michael Bloomberg and his millions of dollars and his high-paid corporate mercenary Shannon Watts did manage to get Starbucks, Chipotle, and Target to issue non-binding statements on open carry. Statements you can't even find on their corporate websites. But also, companies like Staples and Kroger told them to go pound sand with zero repercussions from the public. And that was the last we've heard of Michael Bloomberg pressuring private businesses. But hey, this no-name loser from an unknown anti-gun organization will accomplish what Bloomberg failed.
If you've ever walked down the produce aisle at your local grocery store and seen a "F the NRA" sticker on a tomato, you probably witnessed the handiwork of the anonymous group Betsy Riot.
Obscene vandalism! Exactly what will turn the tide for the failing anti-gun agenda. Also, when was the last time you saw an obscene sticker on a tomato?
If you're a gun licker out in the red state and you're in the changing room or, at the gas pump or something and you see the sticker that says "F the NRA" or "F your guns" or something, radical, it's just this little seed of insecurity. Wait a minute, they're coming to get my guns. And the other funny thing about them is, okay, yeah, we're going to come get your guns. We want to fucking dismantle the Second Amendment.
So it appears that Rebecca isn't very concerned with that hit of listenership that comes with that explicit tag. This clearly shows how unhinged and obnoxious the anti-gun side has become. Gun licker? Really? Is he taking Markley's Law to the new next step? Why is everything about sex to anti-gunners? Also, what are your bets that the idea that reading a sticker filled with obscenities will weaken your resolve? Is it foolish bravado or straight up psychosis? And note that while Betsy Riot is yet another unknown, it now has a ringing endorsement from the Brady campaign in both its obscenity, its illegal behavior, and its extremist views. Rebecca, of course, saved her best activist for last.
This Mrs. Defarge is part of Mom's Demand Action. And yes, she does knit during gun bill hearings, but her real poison is in her pen. She has a blog where she uploads drawings she's done of the real things gun advocates say at public hearings.
Oh no! I wasn't concerned about those other losers doing obnoxious things in anti-gun states. But knitting and amateur cartoons? That's it. I'm having my guns melted down. Also, let's note she named herself after a vicious populist villain in A Tale of Two Cities. This is the Marxist equivalent to a skinhead signing up on the racist Stormfront forum with the screen name Adolf H. 1994. I do think this is the absolute best she could come up with for anti-gun activist groups. She's going to have a hard time coming up with material for her 8th show. But I hope she does, because this is too much fun.
All right, Weird. It was good to talk with you. I'll see you again next week.
See you next week, Sean.
In addition to appearing here, Weird is a regular host on The Squirrel Report and blogs at weirdworld.com. That's WEERD world.com.
Plug of the week.
Forbidden Thoughts by Milo Yiannopoulos, Kindle edition, $5. So this is a book that came out on Amazon. The hint there was Kindle edition, and I only discovered it today. It's currently an ebook, although there are plans to make an actual Dead Tree edition later in the year. And it's a collection of wrongthink by various science fiction authors, such as Mick Cole, John C. Wright, Sarah Hoyt, Brad Torgeson, Vox Day, and there are nonfiction articles by Tom Kratman and Larry Correia. So you're kind of getting the idea of what this is. This is an anthology of science fiction stories that wouldn't be published anywhere else because they're too, too conservative, too libertarian, too wrongthink. And the introduction is written by Milo himself. Now, I haven't finished reading this book because I just bought it today. In fact, the only thing I have read is the introduction. The introduction itself is hilarious. It is worth the price of admission. And once you get past that, everything else is just cake. It's icing. It's dessert. So if you enjoy science fiction writing that doesn't have a social justice message, then I suggest you check out this book.
Well, that's our show for the week. Remember that the GunBlog VarietyCast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Find the show notes at gunblogvarietycast.com/episode 125.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the GunBlog VarietyCast. Music courtesy of Rob Allen at blog.roballen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. This podcast is made possible by the Firearms Policy Coalition and by contributions from listeners like you. This is a URS production.